Good morning. I'm Connie Del Signor, President and CEO of the Visit Annapolis and Arundel County Conference and Visitors Bureau. We're delighted to have you here for this very important event, and it's so appropriate that you would be kicking it off in Annapolis. We've been inviting folks here for over 300 years. It's the first place to touch ground when you come into Maryland, so we're happy to have you here. We also have been the host for many years to kind of been the social scene, starting with George Washington, who came here in the winters, and just to go gaming and dancing and I guess meet women. I'm not sure, but this was the social scene, and that's continued because we have the General Assembly in here every winter as well, and this is where they have their home for 90 days in the winter. So to that, I would like to first tell you, you'll be hearing from a couple of other co-chairs of Hunting Works for Maryland. Deb Carter, Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Campgrounds. Ruth Toomey, who's the Executive Director of the Maryland Tourism Coalition. Dolores Jones, General Manager of the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in Chestertown. And of course, one of those folks who does attend the General Assembly in the winter months, our own Senator John Astle, who is an avid hunter, angler, and somebody who's been very instrumental to tourism and all the activities that generate tourism dollars for the state of Maryland. So let me introduce you to Senator Astle.
I'm really pleased to be here. You know, I believed for a long time in tourism. I think tourism is the industry of Maryland. We really don't build things here much anymore. And so to all the ways that we can benefit, I think this hunting is one. I am a hunter, and I've traveled to other places, and so I know what it is when you go to another place and you got to have a lodging and you got to eat someplace, and then you got to find a bar where you can have that after the hunt, beer or cocktail depending on your taste. So when they approached me about this program, I was really kind of excited about, because I think it's going to work with some other things that we're already doing. But one of the goals for this program is to ensure that the people of Maryland get a message about the economic impact of hunting on our economies in our local communities. And I think people also need to understand the good that hunters do, not only economically, but we're conservationists. You know, we care about forests because we need habitat. We care about clean water because the fishermen need clean water to have the species that we're going to fish. And so hunters are really a big part of that preservation of the landscape. But the other thing is you can't go hunting without equipment. So you got to go to your local sporting goods store because you need a rifle or a bow, and you need ammunition or arrows for your bow, and then you need hunting equipment. You got to have your camouflage jacket that's insulated for the cold, and you got to have the thermos that you're going to carry your hot coffee, and you're going to have all these things that are so important that you're going to have in the field. And so that economic activity of hunters spending money, and I tell you, some of that stuff is not cheap, and so it really does resonate in the community. So with that, I want to talk about other aspects, and so Debbie is going to talk about the Holiday Inn Express and what hunting and fishing means to you.
My name is Dolores Jones, and I'm the General Manager of the Holiday Inn Express in Chestertown, Maryland. And when I was asked to be part of the Hunting Works for Maryland project, I learned more about the economic impact. There's 88,000 people that hunt in Maryland every year. Those 88,000 people spend money on equipment, lodging, dining, transportation. All that money flows through our economy and the economic prosperity along the way. Every hunter supports 4,500 jobs in Maryland. On top of that, hunter spending translates to $128 million in salaries and wages. You'll find hunter-supported jobs all over the place. Gas stations, convenience stores, hotels, restaurants. I, being general manager, see it every day. I talk to people ask them where they're coming from. Just yesterday I spoke to a family. It was a grandfather, a son, and a grandson who's on an 8-day hunting trip coming from Rhode Island to Maryland. So speaking from what we get in business, I can say that hunting is certainly welcome, and the Holiday Inn and Express is excited to do our part in whatever we can do to share that message. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear a little different aspect from Ruth Toomey. She's going to talk about how hunting and tourism affects your industry.
Good morning, all. Thanks again for coming today. I am Ruth Toomey. I am the Executive Director for the Maryland Tourism Coalition. I am new in my role, so I'm very excited that we are joining forces with Hunting Works for Maryland. It's a great time for the two to come together. I want to talk a little bit about specifics on hunter spending. On average, each hunter in Maryland spends about $3,000 a year in pursuit of the sport. Hunters in Maryland spend $128 million on equipment each year. Importantly, I think it's good to point out that hunters each year spend over $50 million on trip-related expenses. That includes food, lodging, transportation, and other trip costs. Speaking for those of us in the tourism industry, I can attest that the statistic is so important to those who own campgrounds, hotels, lodges, and restaurants. If you don't know, tourism is the 10th largest employer in the state of Maryland. 95% of small businesses are in the tourism industry. So if you look at our partners listed over here on the list, you're going to see some big names, but most of them you probably have never heard of. So this campaign is very, very, very important to those people, and we look forward to growing that list. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thanks, Ruth. Okay, and last but not least, Deb.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. As you've heard, many people know about the work that hunters do for conservation. Game and non-game species flourish because of the hunters who returnally give their time, their treasure, and their talents in support of the great outdoors. I want to touch on the $128 million that hunters spend on equipment. Did you know that hunters pay a special 11% tax on their equipment? They fund public conservation efforts through a special tax called Pittman-Robertson. These dollars are distributed to states for conservation efforts. In 2018, Maryland received $8 million in Pittman-Robertson funds for our state's conservation efforts. On top of that, Maryland hunters generate $32 million a year in state and local taxes. So hunting really does work for Maryland. In my position as the executive director of the Maryland Association of Campgrounds and owning a campground on the Eastern Shore, I can tell you that the RV business, the campground industry, is thriving. The RV industry has had 8 consecutive years of growth, with retail sales in 2017 at $20 billion. Hunters love camping. A lot of families love it because it's easy, it's flexible, it's less expensive, and the family wants to be together. So we really do work well together. The script called for a personal anecdote, and I always have trouble because I talk too much, so I was trying to narrow that down a little bit. When my dad left politics in Kent County, when I was probably about 5 years old, he went to work on a game farm called Chino Kennels in Queen Anne's County. At that time, I think it was about a 10,000 acre parcel. So I grew up raising quail. It takes 4 quail eggs to equal a chicken egg, if you ever need to know that. And chuckers and pheasants, and riding horseback hunting, and it was just a wonderful way to grow up. So I was trying to think of what one thing that stuck out to me through that. And my dad and I often rode around or went in the boat, and we talk about ducks. My favorite duck was the bufflehead. I think because he's a chunky little solid duck, and I just liked his cheeks and stuff. My dad, it was a canvasback. And I can remember him telling me about when in the 50s, when he was hunting, that there were canvasback everywhere. And for those who don't know, it's a beautiful sea duck. And he told me when I was probably 10 or 12 years old that I would never see another one in Maryland, that I would not see them out and free. And he's not usually ever been wrong, but he was in this case, because now you can see canvasback everywhere and take pictures of canvasback. And I believe there are even special permits now for hunting canvasback in the state of Maryland. So that wouldn't have happened if hunters didn't care. That's my personal anecdote, and thank you for having me here today.
Can I get your name real quick, please?
Deb Carter,
And spell your last name, please.
Carter,
And what is your title?
Executive Director of the Maryland Association of Campgrounds. You're welcome.
So I'm going to back cleanup, which is something I always enjoy to do. You know, it's amazing when you hear the stories about the impact of hunting on the Maryland economy. And I remember when I first came to Maryland, the goose season was incredible. And if you drove past the airport in Easton, it was filled with private jets from all over the country. Excuse me, people coming here to enjoy the goose hunting, which Maryland was so famous for. Now, unfortunately, because of a number of reasons, the goose population has diminished, and this year, or starting in the next season, there'll be one goose a day limit, which may cut down on some of that, but we'll still have other things that people can do when they come to Maryland. But I'm particularly interested in this program because I was the author of a program that Maryland is underway now. It comes out of the Office of Tourism Development called Fish and Hunt Maryland. So we now have a website. So if you want to come to Maryland and you want to fish or hunt, you go to this website and it'll tell you what's available in the way of species, where to go, what the license requirements are, what the season dates are, lodging. It tells you everything you need to know if you're coming from outside the state of Maryland to enjoy the outdoors. And so I'm really excited because I think this is going to help Maryland, and it's going to help us promote that whole industry. You know, one of the things when you look at the numbers, and these have been done by a professional organization that goes around the country to develop these. And, I'm involved with a national thing called the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses. It's a group of 48 state legislatures that have created caucuses within their own state, and we've hired this guy to do this kind of information gathering. But right here in Maryland, every year, hunters spend just over $400 million. That's what it means to our economy. And that's a lot of money. And when you start spreading that around, you know, if somebody gets $1 here, they got to buy a burger over here. They get a couple bucks in their salary and they need to spend it on. And so that money just ripples through the economy. And it just, I think it's just really good. So the public message that we're trying to get out here is that hunting is not a bad thing. It really is important to our community. And so as we move forward on this, we've got businesses. You've seen hunting keeps them alive and keeps those jobs going. And so if somebody is interested, they can go to, get this guys, www.huntingworksformd.com. That's the website for this, and so you can go there and get the information that Hunting Works for Maryland has to offer. So I want to thank you for allowing us to use the Senator John C. Astle conference room. And offline, I'll tell you the story of how that came to be. But I appreciate your willingness to be here, and I guess now we can take questions, if you guys have any questions. So I got answers. That's what I do. I see a hand.
Well, I have one. What do you have any data on young people getting into hunting? Are we seeing the same numbers that we have in the past?
You know, that's an issue that this National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses has been working on, is the recruitment of younger hunters, because we've seen a decline in the number of licenses, and that's important because the Pittman Robinson funds are based on the number of hunting licenses that you sell, and so the more hunting licenses we sell, the more money we're going to get back from that program, the federal government. So we're looking at hunter recruitment. At the end of this month, I'm going to a conference in New Hampshire of the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses. We'll have representatives from states all over the country, and that's one of the issues that we've been looking at. What can we do to encourage younger hunters to get involved? We're
How
not.
does Maryland rank in the United States in hunting?
Higher than you would think, but I don't have the hard number that I could give you. I mean, we can get that for you, but I don't have it off the top of my head. So, yes, sir.
I guess how did this partnership come about?
With these guys, they showed up in my office one day and said, "We have this program that we're trying to run across the country nationally, and we've done 7 other states."
This is 19.
19. This will be the 19th state that has implemented this program. And because of my interest in tourism, I mean, I'm on the Tourism Development Board. I'm on the board for this organization because I really believe that tourism is the industry. And when the organization came to me and said, "Would you be willing to be one of the co-sponsors of this program?" I said, "Absolutely, I'm in." So, but that I didn't go looking for them; they found me. Yes, John.
Where are the other places? Obviously, the Eastern Shore and the duck hunting, the goose hunting, and whatnot. Where are the other places in Maryland that are coming as a non-hunter? Where are the big hunter places in Maryland?
Well, you'd be surprised. Charles County, Prince George's County. One of the biggest deer ever taken in Maryland was shot in Prince George's County year before last. So it's all over the state. It isn't just the Eastern Shore. It isn't just Dorchester County. I got property out in Garrett County. They hunt in Garrett County, not just for deer, but turkeys. The turkey reintroduction, that's a really interesting story. Turkeys almost disappeared, and there was a program set nationally to try to reintroduce turkeys, and it's one of the most successful reintroduction programs that we've ever had. And now every jurisdiction in Maryland has turkeys, except for Annapolis. And our turkeys live someplace else. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the unique aspects of Maryland hunting, specifically the fact that we have Sika deer here.
We have what?
Sika deer.
So, Sika deer are an incredible species of deer. Now, I had an opportunity 2 years ago to hunt Sika deer on television. I was hunting with an outdoor writer named Craig Boddington and a retired Marine 4-star named Walt Boomer. And we hunted on a place over on the Eastern Shore. The farm was such that you had to use bow and arrow. They did not permit firearms on the farm. But first Sika deer I ever saw. I mean, they're pretty incredible creatures. And I'm told that as far as dining is concerned, the meat is one of the best tasting game meats that you can have. Sika deer are unique to the Eastern Shore. I'm told that they came as lawn ornaments. They were imported from Japan, and then they escaped, and now they're pretty firmly established in the lower level areas, the swamps. I mean, they hide out in the swamps. They're hard to hunt. But that's a species you're not going to get out in Western Maryland or in Prince George's County because it's unique to the Eastern Shore. And for some people, some people want to hunt specific game, and so they're going to look for a place. So somebody that says, I've never hunted Sika deer and I want that experience, they're going to come to Maryland because we've got them, and they're going to stay in her Holiday Inn.
For my campground.
Or they're going to bring their RV and camp out in her campground. With that, I appreciate your willingness to hear what we had to say today, and hopefully as this program rolls out, we're going to get more interest. You can see the number of businesses that saw the value of this and wanted to become a part and party of what we're about. I'm still going to be involved, but in January I'll no longer be the sitting senator for District 30, but I'm still going to be involved in tourism in Maryland because I really believe that's the industry. We don't have to build anything in Maryland to get you here. We got it. All we have to do is market it. Okay. Okay, thank you.